Thanks for tuning in. It's almost Sinterklaas, so it's time for those traditional holiday treats. I've already posted videos for kruidnootjes and banketstaaf. I'll put the links in the description below, and I recommend you watch them after you've finished watching this video. Today we're making Taaitaai, a slightly chewy cookie with those flavors that are so characteristic for the Dutch holidays. Just like always when I'm getting ready to record videos, I've done research into the history of the dish. For Taaitaai there are many different stories. One of those actually says that these cookies originated in the Philippines in a town called Taaitaai, T-A-Y-T-A-Y. And when they got loaded on a boat to be shipped to the UK, the Dutch conquered that boat, took over all its cargo, and by the time it came to Rotterdam, the largest port in the Netherlands, and the cookies got offloaded, they had gotten tough and chewy. So we changed the name of the Philippine town Taaitaai to Taaitaai, which is basically the word for tough or chewy twice. Hi, I'm Toine and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I focus on cooking foods from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies such as Indonesia. If you want to make Taaitaai, you do have to do a little bit of planning because it takes at least 2 days to make these delicious cookies. Back in the day, bakers would make the starter dough months in advance and just let it sit and rest somewhere in their bakery. Then, when it was time to mix the final dough, the apprentices would put on sanded down wooden shoes and stomp on all the ingredients to mix it together because the starter dough had gotten pretty hard and was very difficult to mix. Now, in this recipe, you don't have to have wooden shoes to make it. You can just use a stand mixer. To make the starter dough, you will need 500 grams of rye flour, 100 grams of brown sugar, 275 grams of honey. This is actually the honey that we received from Gerry, 100 milliliters of water, and 2 grams of salt. What I'm going to do first is mix the salt through the rye flour, and then we're going to move to the stove to mix all the other ingredients together. All right, let's go to the stove. We're going to put the water, the brown sugar, and the honey in the pan. In the olden days, when you were courting someone, you would give them a speculaas pop, a figurine made out of speculaas, as a token that you were very interested in them. If they accepted it, it meant they were interested as well. Think of it as the olden way of swiping right. However, if you wanted to break it off, you would give them a figurine made out of Taaitaai. It was a sign that, yeah, I don't really want to go on with you. Okay, I think I got it all. So now over medium-high heat, while continuously stirring, we're going to bring this to a boil. And we're not talking just on the edges of the pot. We really want a rolling boil. And all the sugar has to be fully dissolved. Since I'm going to be pouring the boiling liquid into the bowl with the rye flour, please make sure that you're using a heat-proof bowl. Little bubbles are starting to form around the edge of the pan. Keep stirring so the sugar and the honey doesn't burn. And once it comes to a rolling boil, it's ready to be poured over the flour. And here we have a rolling boil. Okay, now we have to move a little bit quickly. Ooh, smell that honey. So good. Now I'm using a Danish whisk. I find that that works best to stir this. It does end up being a little bit tough to mix this all together. So this is not something probably you want to let a little kid do. Because we use boiling liquid, of course, you can't knead this together by hand. You have to use a spoon or a Danish whisk like this. Sometimes I bring in Mr. Spatula to help me out here a little bit to fold some of the loose flour into the sticky dough. You can feel the heat, so this is definitely something you want to be careful with when you're putting this together. Once all the flour is incorporated, we're going to wrap it in plastic wrap and let it rest at room temperature for at least a day. I think we're good here, so I've put some plastic wrap on the board and I've kind of, with a spatula, shaped the dough into a ball. And if you have cold hands, this is very nice to warm your hands on. I'm going to put it on the counter in my kitchen and let it rest for at least 24 hours. If you're enjoying this video, please click the like and subscribe button. It will really help our channel. If you want YouTube to notify you whenever we post a new video, click the bell. To finish making the dough, you will need 10 grams of brown sugar, 10 grams of baking powder, 10 grams of ground anise, 10 milliliters or 10 grams of water, 6 grams of the speculaas kruiden that we made earlier. I'll put a link to that recipe in the description below. 50 grams of honey, and I kind of feel like a real TV chef because I have a swap. This is starter that we made earlier this week. I have clearly misplaced my sanded down wooden shoes for stomping the dough together, so I'll be using our smaller stand mixer. This isn't a huge amount of dough, and with the larger bowl, the dough hook just has a little bit of a hard time putting it together. So first we are unwrapping the starter, and it's still very sticky, as you can tell. And we're going to break it into little pieces. As you can see, that's not necessarily that easy to do. Of course, because this starter dough was just flour, honey, brown sugar, and water, and some salt, really the first thing you smell when you are working with it is that honey. We're adding the water, the brown sugar, anise powder, speculaas kruiden. So this has those kind of familiar speculaas kruiden in it, but anise is definitely the predominant flavor when you're eating this. Baking powder. Don't forget this. I've forgotten it in the past, and what happens is you end up with a much more dense and less chewy cookie, but it still tastes good. And last but not least, the honey. Let's make sure that you get it all. Don't want to let any of this go to waste. I'm going to use the dough hook. Just scrape some of it off. Make sure you lock it. And now let the dough hook do the stomping for you. Starting to look pretty good, but I am going to push it down. This is really hard dough, so try to help it as much as you can. Everything looks to be well combined, so now it's time to start rolling it out. Before we start rolling out, there's a few more things you will need. An egg wash to brush on top of the cookies, and optionally some pearl sugar. I like the Taaitaai that have little pieces of pearl sugar on it, but you don't have to do that. Not all the Taaitaai has it. We have our work surface. We're going to dust it with flour because this is a really sticky dough. And we're going to flatten it by hand a little bit first, otherwise you'll be rolling forever. I also like to dust the rolling pin a little bit. And I have 5mm or 1/4 inch spacers on here. So this is a workout because it is a really hard dough. And we're going to just roll it out until it is a sheet that is 5mm thick. Almost there. This board is almost too small to do this on. I can just cheat a little bit and move it around. That's okay. Okay. Yeah, it's coming off the board. I can see that. So we're going to just rip this off and I will roll that out separately. Taaitaai most commonly comes in the shape of Sinterklaas, a pop, a figurine. I don't have the wooden mold that you need to do that, so I'm just going to cut it in regular shapes, either with a pizza cutter into squares or rectangles, or with cookie cutters into a little bit more fancy shapes. If you have a gingerbread man cookie cutter, that's a great idea to use on this dough. I have a few shape cutters, a heart, a circle, and a flower, and we're going to just use all of them. We'll be a little creative today. place it on a cookie sheet. Trying to have the smallest amount of trimmings when I do this. So whatever trimmings we have, we can knead back together and make a new dough ball, roll it out, and cut more cookies out of it. Okay, 3 hearts. Let's do some flowers. These cutters are all about the same size, so the Taaitaai should bake pretty evenly this way. You do want to space them out enough because they will spread a little bit in the oven. Now we're going to brush them lightly with the egg wash. And I will put pearl sugar on half of them. The oven is preheated at 200 degrees Celsius or 390 degrees Fahrenheit, non-convection mode. The thing with Taaitaai cookies is that even when they're done baking, they actually get better by just letting them sit in an airtight container for a little while, because right out of the oven, some of the edges and even some of the crust, if you will have a little crunch to it, and that will turn to that same chewy texture by just letting them sit and rest for a little bit. Not too much pearl sugar, and just push them into the dough a little bit. Decorating these cookies with pearl sugar and cutting them out in different shapes is a great thing to do together with your kids. The Taaitaai is ready to be put in the oven. They're going to bake for 8 to 10 minutes. You want to check them halfway through and rotate the sheet if necessary. The timer went off for the first sheet of cookies, so I'm going to take it out of the oven. The cookies have cooled off and it's time to give them a try, but first, let's give them a smell. They smell so good. You can definitely tell the anise scent there. It is the first thing you smell, but you can pick up some of the speculaas smell as well. Time to eat. Eet Smakelijk. Cookie is nice and chewy, just like I remember, and the flavors are spot on. Warming, all those different spices come together beautifully. It is absolutely delicious. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share with your friends. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. I'll post a written recipe on my website, toineskitchen.com, and you can follow me on social media as well. If you make your own Taaitaai and maybe make them in an interesting shape or decorate them, take a photo, post them on Instagram with the hashtag ToinesKitchen, and I will feature it on my story and on my website. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.